The Senate will come to order. Senators will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley, Baumgartner, Berger, Billinger, Boyer, Bowers, Denning, Dahl, Estes, Fauscadeau, Fitzgerald, Francisco, Givens, Goddard, Haley, Hardy, Hawk, Hensley, Hildebrand, Holland, Kelly, Kersham, Longbine, Lynn, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, Peterson, Petty, Pilcher Cook, Pyle, Rogers, Schmidt, Skubal, Solentrop, Sykes, Taylor, Tyson, Wagle, Wilborn.
Senators and their guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to the chaplain.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious Master, Lord God of heaven and earth, once again you've allowed us to gather in this place, a place where we make significant decisions, a place where we look to you for wisdom and guidance. But with our natural eyes, we cannot see you. With our natural ears, we cannot hear you. Lord, we can be in this place and miss connecting with you. Yet hearing from you is the need, and it's what you want us to practice and to get good at. There's a movie out called The War Room. It's a small room where, upon entering, distractions are reduced. The noises that naturally exist all around us are minimized, and a private visit with you becomes qualitative. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 6, you told us how to go into that place where we can hear from you. It's not a natural place, it's a spiritual place. It's a place of privacy where we can go in with you while physically sitting or standing right where we are. Lord, I want to give each of us a chance to try it right now. For the next few seconds, for the next few moments, help us in the Spirit to prayerfully enter a private place with you. We now pause for a moment of private, silent prayer. Thank you, Lord, for hearing from us and giving us an opportunity to hear from you. Thanks for a moment of private time with you. Without your wisdom and guidance, we'd be like a ship without a rudder. Help us to practice it and to get good at it. I come to you in the precious name of Jesus the Christ. Amen. Amen.
Please continue standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On a point of personal privilege, the chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Today is Kansas Nonprofit Day here at the State House, and we have volunteers and leaders representing more than 20 nonprofits. And I left a pad of paper or a sheet of paper on your desk, and it talks a little bit about the nonprofits and the impact they make here in the state of Kansas. One of these organizations is the YMCA. I had a number of my friends from Wichita come. If they would stand, we have several of them here, and also from the 10 different YMCAs around the state of Kansas. And if you'd join me in welcoming them, I would appreciate that. So. And I just also want to remind all of you that we're all invited to join the Y and the other nonprofits at the networking reception across the street at the Dillon House from 4:30 to 6:30. And again, just want everyone to know how much we appreciate the nonprofits and what they do in our state of Kansas. Thank you.
On an additional point of privilege, the chair recognizes the senator from Reno, Senator Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to introduce to you Jaron Caffrey, a senior from Haven High School, who just returned from Washington. He was part of the United States Senate Youth Program, one of 2 delegates from the state of Kansas. As part of that, he'll receive a $10,000 scholarship and be attending Washburn next year. Let's welcome Jaron to the Senate.
On an additional point of personal privilege, the chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It is my honor today to introduce, come here, Ima. This is Ima Barbato, and I'm not saying that last name with the, will you just say it for us?
Barbato.
Wasn't that great? She is from Naples, Italy, and she is here as an exchange student. She's here for the whole year. She came in September, and she'll go back home in June. She's a junior at Hayden High School, and she is staying with a host family in my neighborhood and in my district, and it's been a real treat to have you here today and to talk about some of the differences in our government in Kansas compared to governance in Italy. And she's not told me which one is better yet, but she's learned a lot. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of my Senate colleagues who have made her feel so welcome today. I really appreciate that.
Please note reference of bills on page 1 of the calendar. Consideration of appointments. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. In compliance with Senate Rule 55, the appointment of Gina Meyer Hummel, appearing on page 2 of the calendar, is ready for consideration. Are there any questions? Mr. Vice President, I'm not seeing any questions. I move the appointment be confirmed as recommended by the Committee on Public Health and Welfare.
We will hold for final action. We are now ready for final action. On this roll call, we will take the following. The appointment of Gina Meyer Hummel, the first 2 consent calendar bills on page 3, House Bill 2469 and House Bill 2567, and the bills on page 4, substitute for House Bill 2194 and House Bill 2476. The clerk will read the titles and the name.
By the Governor, Department for Children and Families, Secretary Gina Meyer Hummel. House Bill 2469, an act concerning insurance. House Bill 2567, an act concerning crimes. Substitute for House Bill 2194, an act concerning motor vehicles. House Bill 2476, an act concerning alcoholic beverages.
The clerk will call the roll. The Senate will be at ease for a minute. The Senate will come to order. Senators will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgartner. Berger. Billinger. Bowers. Boyer. Denning. Dahl. Estes. Voscadeau. Fitzgerald. Francisco. Givens. Goddard. Haley. Hardy. Hawk. Hensley. Hildebrand. Holland. Kelly. Kersham. Longbine. Lim. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. Peterson. Petty. Pilcher Cook. Pyle. Rogers. Schmidt. Skubal. Solentrop. Sykes. Taylor. Tyson. Wagle. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Pass to aye.
Does any senator wish to change their vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Chair recognizes Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I wish to explain the pride behind this roll call that I have. I have a strong sense of history, and whether Republican or Democrat, we here have a historic roll call. The senator from Finney casting his vote. It's the first time that an independent has cast a vote since 1879 in the Kansas Senate. That history is being made with his vote, and I'm proud, and I'm explaining my vote, that I'm proud to be a part of that roll call, regardless of either party affiliation.
Senator from Wyandotte, would you like a remark spread in the journal? So ordered. Any additional senator wish to explain their vote? The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. 40 voting in favor and 0 against for Meyer Hummel. House Bill 2469, House Bill 2567, and substitute for House Bill 2194. 38 voting in favor, 2 against for House Bill 2476. These measures, having received the required constitutional majority, are hereby declared passed and confirmed. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The chair appoints the senator from Miami, Senator Baumgardner, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The Senate, having resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole, will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We'll turn our attention to Senate Bill 248. The chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Schmidt, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come to you today with Senate Bill 428 regarding the regulation of child care facilities. This amends the law regarding licensed school-age programs operating in a school building or a public recreation building. Under current law, the school-based after-school programs are inspected by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment through contracts with local health inspectors. The programs are operated in facilities that are functioning as a school and are managed for the care and protection of school-aged children. The programs are open in the school facility before and after school and on days when the schools are closed, like snow days. Unfortunately, there are no clear regulatory lines separating the after-schools program responsibilities from school district responsibilities regarding the management of the facilities. At times, the after-school programs have been cited for environmental deficiencies that are outside of the after-school program's control, but within the normal course of operation of the school. This bill will give KDHE the authority to recognize the difference and avoid penalizing the after-school programs for infractions that were not within their control and pose no imminent threat to children. KDHE worked on this bill with all the interested parties, and they came to an agreement that this legislation will make the process better while prioritizing the health and safety of children receiving care away from their home and parents. And Madam Chair, I do have an amendment that I would like to offer.
Have you turned it in?
I have. It is number 3684.
Okay. Would you like to explain it?
I would like to explain it. It is a technical amendment only. After the word comply on page 2, line 9, we are inserting the word with. So it is doesn't change the bill. It's only a cleanup, a technical cleanup. And I would stand for questions on the amendment.
Are there any questions on the amendment? You may move your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment carries. Are there any questions? We're back on the bill. Are there any questions for the senator from Shawnee? Yes, the senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the senator from Shawnee would answer the question of what's the major difference of this activity or place for kids, what's the difference between this and latchkey?
Senator from Shawnee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that latchkey programs are after-school programs, and that's what this is. These are after-school programs provided by entities such as the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Clubs. I'm sure there are other entities that would be looped in, but this is, I think they're either called latchkey after-school programs. Those are the entities similar to.
Okay, and so just...
Senator from Sedgwick, did you have another question?
No, I don't have a question. Just appreciate the clarification and making that distinct difference of what the intent of the bill is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there other questions of the senator from Shawnee? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 428 as amended favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carried. At this time, we turn our attention to House Bill 2498 and the senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. 2498 actually, for those who didn't catch it, I pulled it off the consent calendar yesterday, but it was because I thought it deserved its day in the sun. It was brought to us by our Native American members over in the House side, Democrat Ponkaweed Vickers, Republican Les Osterman. I didn't even know this was an issue, but I thought it was important, and I thought it fit in with our subject matter today. So evidently it basically prohibits public entities, municipalities, state government from prohibiting Native Americans from wearing their regalia when appropriate. So I didn't know it existed, but they actually had some examples of when that happened, and were, I think, appropriately offended, calling them costumes or whatever it was, like this is my costume today, right? So, so anyway, I thought it really deserved its day in the sun, and it deserved a full vote. That's why I pulled it, just to bring it forward. So that's the bill, and I'd stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator from Butler? The senator from Sedgwick.
Madam Chairperson, not actually a question, because I rise in strong support of the bill. Just wanted to speak in favor again and make a point that Representative Ponkaweed Vickers, representing the 103rd District in Wichita, Kansas, made in the hearing that day, that and some of the other conferees, that young people who are graduating high school, normally we would wear, or my daughters wore, a cap and gown, Madam Chair, and individuals, Native Americans here in Kansas, would like to wear their proper dress, which is not a costume. Their regalia. They would like to wear that in honoring their culture, their heritage, and a proud moment in their lives of wearing and not being made or told that they would have to wear a cap and gown. So it allows them, if they choose to wear their proper dress at that occasion, they could without any reprimand. And so I stand in strong support of House Bill 2498 and hope that the body would also too. And thank you, Madam Chair and Senator from Butler.
Are there any questions or comments for the senator from Butler? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And it's really not unlike the bill that we'll be following. It's kind of sad we have to pass the bill because we shouldn't have to say that, as a matter of fact. But with that, Madam Chair, I move when we rise and report, the committee report 2498 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carried. We now turn our attention to Senate Bill 340, again with the senator from Butler, Senator Masterson, with the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. SB 340 is more commonly known as the Campus Free Speech Bill. And again, just like the prior one, it's actually something we really shouldn't have to reinforce, but the sad fact is we do. The nut of the bill, and similar bills have been passed in Colorado, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, Arizona. I think Florida was the latest. Missouri. Missouri's was actually a while ago signed by their former Democrat governor into Missouri. But it really it reinforces free speech on our public campus, on our taxpayer-funded colleges and universities, basically by requiring that they cannot force kids to adhere to a particular religious belief or orthodoxy. And then the other issue is there's been a rash of free speech codes, free speech zones, policies that basically stifle the marketplace of free ideas. And this is the one area where you really cannot stifle. Of all entities in the state, this chamber ought to appreciate the free exchange of ideas. Whether we agree or disagree, we need to have free, open, civil debate over a whole host of ideas. And sometimes we vehemently disagree in this chamber, and I appreciate the ability to have that back and forth and work through those ideas. So those are some of the policies I do. It does not mean there are no restrictions. There was some pushback on that. There are constitutional time, place, and manner, meaning if the building closes at 10 for everybody, I don't have a constitutional right to go in there, stay in there at 11:30. I don't have it. I mean, it's that the rules are equally applied. I can't charge for this room $10 to the Republicans and $1,000 to the Democrats, or vice versa, or implement security fees. There was an institution in Washington that imposed like a $15,000 security fee because they didn't like but it's based on the content. You cannot restrict based on the content of the speech, the subject matter involved. So anyway, with that, Madam Chair, I would stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator from Butler? The senator from Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have a few questions if the carrier of the bill would consent.
He will.
One of my concerns I have, and I am hopeful that you will allay that concern, is as a former faculty member, wondering if a student might actually use this bill to disrupt a class. For example, a faculty member may be teaching a class, might be a political science class, could be a science class, and the student may hold different views. And I notice on page 2, on line 37, the section is 4, talks about not suppress free speech by openly and vigorously contesting the ideas they oppose. There's some mention in the bill I saw on the last page, page 4, about disruption. So my concern is, could a student actually disrupt or sabotage a class by citing the statute and free speech to actually get the whole class off task, and knowing that the faculty members do have certain amounts of content to cover and are held accountable in their teaching for that?
Senator from Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's actually a good question, and that falls clearly under manner. Constitutional time, place, and manner. You can't restrict somebody's marketplace of idea, but you can certainly hold them to decorum, just like we do here. You can be ejected from the gallery. But you can't restrict the idea. But you can certainly hold the classroom to common courtesies and respect and classroom policy.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Do you have another
question? It does,
question?
and I'm sorry I looked at him and broke our decorum, but I appreciate the answer.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. When we first heard this in committee, I was troubled, and I was troubled from the standpoint of being a school board member and understanding the difficulties that an education facility could do having with this. But the more I got to thinking about it, I really see how difficult it is to not support free speech in our state, and particularly in our learning institutions. But as I read the bill after it was amended at the rail, I noticed that we took out a number of items, particularly faculty. But we also leave faculty in to some of the other parts of the bill. And that troubles me because we're offering free speech to our students and then anyone that they invite. Again, if you've read this bill, you've seen that they can invite anyone and they cannot be uninvited by the school or anyone, really, in that regard. But we also define who a faculty member is, and that we talk about that their job, if you look on page 2, line 35, it's the institution's individual students and faculty to make judgments about ideas for themselves and to act on those judgments, not by seeking to suppress free speech, but by openly and vigorously contesting the ideas that they oppose. And then we went in on our amendments and took out faculty a couple of times on page 3, and I believe one time, yeah, page 3 primarily. And one of the things that we took out was that the faculty, their primary responsibility of faculty is to engage in honest, courageous, and persistent effort to search out and communicate the truth that lies in the areas of their competence. So, as I read that, it worries me that we are going to be sending a message, if we pass it in this current form, that we only care about the students and the people they invite, not the faculty themselves. And I understand that students are paying the freight, they're paying tuition, but the faculty are, in that sense, getting paid, but they don't check their free speech rights at the door just like a student doesn't. So I really feel like we need to add the faculty back in, and I have an amendment to that effect. I have turned it in. It is 3690, and I can explain it in a minute, but my question, or I guess my point is, and I appreciate the senator from Butler explaining constitutional time, manner, and place, because there are some real restrictions that schools can place on free speech. As the senator from Butler explained, it could be the time of time. There's also been court cases where students have been told they can't make threats against certain faculty or other students groups, those types of things. And so I think it's really important that we send a message that our faculty are as important on free speech on our campuses as our students. And again, if I remember back to my time in college, I probably learned more from the faculty that I disagreed with than the faculty that I agreed with. And I think it's also important to point out that the protections we have in this bill to protect a student and the possible guests that they invite are not extended to our faculty. So if we want that protection, we need to talk about that in this body and add the faculty back in.
Senator, did you want to explain your amendment now that it's been distributed?
Yes, thank you. What I have proposed is that we put back in the bill on page 3, wherever it says students and faculty, we add faculty back in. We add the lines, the primary responsibility of faculty is to engage in honest, courageous, and persistent effort to search out and communicate the truth that lies in the areas of their competence. And then I've also added on back of page 4, at the bottom of page 4, a reasonable viewpoint of neutral restrictions. We had struck the words non-public, and we put in any forum, and I've added that we put that back in as non-public. And the reason for that is that there are groups on campus that have private meetings, and I don't think it's necessary for us to require those private meetings to be open. That's something that particular group can choose to hold private themselves. If it's a public meeting, that's going to be a different story.
Are there any questions on the amendment? Senator from Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. On this, as a carry, these are the components that were brought in a proposed amendment by the Board of Regents for the higher ed institutions. At the body, well, I didn't feel as we were looking through there that it eroded necessarily anything that pertained to faculty. The concern I think they brought was you had an instance a few years ago where one faculty member was espousing the death of any members to a particular organization on their social media, and I think there is a difference between the free marketplace for students and then the responsibilities as faculty. So they wanted to retain some of the policies around faculty that I thought could be appropriate. The difference is you're talking about students who are paying to go to this institution to be part of this marketplace, and faculty who are being paid by the institution and representatives of the institution. So those were, and I'm just expressing the arguments brought to me by the board for the rationale for this proposed amendment, which we accepted. So with that, Madam Chair, that's what I had. This is the Regents amendment, if you will, and I'd just be reversing that so everybody understands what it was doing.
Are there any further? Yes, the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Wagle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I ask the senator from Butler a question about the amendment?
You may.
That they made in committee and that is on the floor now?
You may.
Yes, Senator from Butler, did the Regents say that they felt that the behavior of faculty was covered under their employment contract and that's why they wanted the bill changed?
Senator from Butler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was, she well articulated, that was the expression.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also spoke to the Regents representative and asked the question, would the constitutional manner, time, and place and their PR policies allow them to control the social media and other factors of free speech? And he told me yes, he thought so. And then I also asked particularly in response to the senator from Butler, the issue of the violence, I asked our reviser what constitutional manner, time, and place meant. And he said courts have upheld restrictions on speech advocating violence against certain faculty, group of students, or law enforcement. So again, the constitutional time, place, and manner would handle that type of a thing.
Are there any other questions on the amendment? Yes, the senator from Cherokee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that I was reading this right. On the amendment, it says on page 5 in line 2, striking any and inserting non-public on the stricken material, but should that be maybe page 4, line 42?
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Yes, what I instructed was the line on page 4, line 42, non-public to any forums. So I don't know how that got switched. I don't see it on page 5, but I may have an older bill. It's on here, this one. Yeah, this is the current bill.
Senator Rogers, did you want to speak to someone from the revisor's office?
Yes, we could do that. I'm wondering if that's a typo on their part. I want to check on that. Okay. Yeah.
Do we just at ease while they figure it out? We will stand at ease while they figure this out.
I would be happy to withdraw this. I have another amendment as well and see if we can get this one fixed.
We will withdraw this. Can you provide us with the number for your next amendment?
Yes, it is 3688.
We will pass that out. Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers, would you like to explain your second amendment?
Yes, please. Thank you. What I'm asking in this amendment is that we add a portion right under the discussion that student fees cannot be withheld from any group for a particular reason or particular speech, is add the phrase that any meeting of post-secondary education institution or any group or committee thereof who discusses the allocation of student activity fees shall be subject to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. And then on page 4, I've added that the policy of free speech that we talk about being on the different websites or areas there, that we would ask the institution to place a public notice in the student paper each year listing where the free speech policy can be found. The reason that my thinking behind these amendments is on, first of all, many of you may have read the instance of some of the fees at Wichita State, where those were decided behind closed doors, and then at the last minute they were determined, the president asked them to meet in public. And they based that restriction of the free and open meeting to a 1977 Attorney General's opinion. And so I asked research if they could give me an idea as to what we're talking about when it comes to student fees. And if you look at just our Regents universities, K-State, KU, the Med Center, Emporia State, Fort Hays, Pittsburgh State, Wichita State, our Regents universities collect $513 million in student fees. Now, some of those go to the health service, some of them go to a wellness fee, some of them go to the athletic department. And I'm not saying that any of those would be restricted or limited, but if there's an allocation committee, then they would just have to follow the law of open meetings and make sure that they're publicized and open to the public. And then the other item on, if you look on page 4 for the public notice, I think there's lots of ways that we can communicate to people the free speech policy. And again, they're all very good ideas. Student handbook, faculty handbook, sending to the students on their email, publishing annually on the website. But after a while, if you have been to many school organizations' websites, they're very full. And so I think a public notice, similar to what a school district, a county commission, or a city council would have to do, that would say, this is where you can find this, and it's a once-a-year notice to tell people what's going on. I think both are very just common sense. They're both appealing to our transparency desire as a state, and they really should not change how we do business with these instances. I would stand for questions.
Are there questions on this amendment? Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just trying to read through real quick. And this deals with Cora. I'm just to get it right, I'm going to challenge the germaneness of the amendment, and then we'll go from there.
At this time, we recognize the Rules Chair from Lyon, Senator Longvine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Senate Bill 340, this amendment is going into a section that is discussing student fees. The bill deals with free speech, and the COMA deals with open meeting records and transparency, free speech, so the Rules Committee ruled that it is germane.
We are back on the amendment. Are there any further questions for the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers? Call on the senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, will of the body. My only concern I have is it feels pointed towards one institution. So I have concern with the drag on it, but other than that, I mean, it's will of the body on subject matter.
Senator Rogers from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we found out at one particular institution that this is happening, but again, as I review the millions of dollars that are collected in student fees, I think it's important that we provide transparency to those students as to how that money is allocated, similar to what any school board or any city or county would do if they collect fees. I know as a school board member, student fees that we collect are part of our budgeting process and open meetings, and also open to open records, and we're not talking about that here, but University of Kansas, $132 million, KU, 82, Kansas State, 124, Wichita State, 58 million. That's a lot of money to be making decisions on behind closed doors. So I think it's really important that we provide this transparency, not only for our students, but also the parents that are helping pay the freight.
Are there any further questions on the amendment? You may move your amendment. Oh, excuse me. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this amendment, and particularly the requirement that a public notice is published in the student newspaper. Things in print are often easier to see and refer to than assuming that you need to check the website. This is not the final action on this bill, and I hope we find a way to word that a little more clearly so that we don't say where the policy can be found and then start into through one or more of the following methods. But I will leave that at this point to the House to fix.
Any further questions or comments on the amendment? You may move your amendment.
I would encourage each member to vote in favor, and I would go ahead and move my amendment.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment passes. We are back on the base bill, Senate Bill 340. Chair calls on Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
We have checked with revisers, and they were looking at an incorrect version of the bill, and they're working on a revised of my first amendment. If we could pass over or hold for a few minutes, I would appreciate that.
Is there any other discussion on the bill at this time? If not, we will stand at ease and wait for the new amendment. It appears that we have the amendment. Do we have an amendment number?
Madam Chair, the amendment we have is correct. It has moved to page 5 because of the language, the lines that we added back in. So on the bill, if you have it in front of you, when we add, with this amendment, lines 18, 19, and 20, the primary responsibility of faculty, that then moves the items from page 4 onto page 5, so that it does become the correct. I should not have guessed, second guessed our reviser. They're much better than I am at this.
Are there any questions on the original amendment? Yes, the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Wagle.
If I could speak to the amendment.
You most certainly may.
Now that I've had a chance to look at it, I understand why the regents had the word faculty stricken on page 3. The goal of the bill is to allow free speech of students, but this amendment goes beyond. It puts back in the word faculty, which all the regents asked to have stricken on that page, but then it goes on and it sets the responsibility of faculty. It says in this amendment, the primary responsibility of faculty is to engage in an honest, courageous, and persistent effort to search out and communicate the truth that lies in the areas of their competence. And to me, we're not dealing with an employment contract here. What we're dealing with is a protection of speech of students. In fact, a number of students did bring this bill to Federal and State Affairs Committee and asked to have this. And it was really based on political views. There were some people who were feeling that they couldn't express their political views. And here we have an amendment before us that's telling the faculty that they have to search the truth. And I don't know how in an employment contract, how you determine what the truth is. I debate as a Republican. I have an outlook on life, and I debate the opposite party, the Democrats here, on several bills. There are many things we agree with, but there are times we differ in the way we look at what's good for our society, and I don't think that we should be putting in a bill something that should be in an employment contract, and I'm sure the regents don't want that defined in a bill, what the role of the faculty member is. That's why they had faculty even stricken in the first place. They have employment contracts, and they determine the role of faculty in their institution. So I would speak against this amendment.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. But then I would ask the question, why do we have faculty on page 1, line 15, where we talk about that the post-secondary educational institutions continue to embrace a commitment to the freedom of speech and expression for all students and faculty. Page 1, line 16, where the educational institutions, including their faculty, shall not require students or other faculty to adopt or indicate their adherence to beliefs or orthodoxies. Or on page 2, line 2, faculty or faculty member means the person. Page 2, line 34, it is the institution's individual students and faculty to make judgments about ideas for themselves and to act on those judgments, not by seeking to suppress free speech, but to openly and vigorously contesting the ideas that they oppose. Those are faculties that did not get removed. Those are faculties and names and words that are still in the bill. And so it makes this bill very hypocritical if we don't give that free speech to faculty. I'm very desirous of being able to vote for this bill. And I can do that with having faculty added to this, knowing that the employer, the regents, can handle that through constitutional manner, time, place, and an employment contract, or whatever else they want to do, policies and procedures. I think we're being very short-sighted to say we can only give free speech to a certain group. And in this bill, the way it's written right now, we give the guests that come to one of our institutions a higher priority of free speech than our own employees. That's disappointing, to say the least.
Senator, the chair is uncertain. You did begin by posing a question. Is that directed at someone?
That was a metaphorical question.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Yes, the senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Although rhetorical, I think I can answer the question on one. The faculty's there because they're considered an agent of the institution. So like on the secondary institution, including their faculty, shall not require. So they were agents of the institution is why the word faculty was left there. I think there is open question of whether or not, I think this doesn't restrict faculty from their freedom of speech necessarily, but there is some appropriate employment restrictions. So again, will the body, I do think, I must assume since the amendment was the boards and representatives of higher ed that they would be opposed to it, although I have not stepped out to communicate with anybody officially. I must let that be known. So will of the body.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking faculty out will, of course, make it much easier for the regents or any employer to control what their faculty or their employees have to say. I think that makes my point even stronger. When you have one group that has the power to control someone else's speech, they no longer have free speech.
Senator from Cherokee, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just in the spirit of trying to keep this clean, if this amendment is passed, if in fact on page 5 in line 2, we're supposed to take that after that is inserted above, then in line 21 before subject by inserting 10 would be incorrect. So just wanted to point that out to the body. Thank you.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Rogers.
I guess I would defer to our revisor's office in that regard. So,
any other questions or comments on the amendment? You may move your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have the right of free speech in this chamber, and we use it every day. Some of us more than others, and we appreciate that, and we value that. So I think if we ask ourselves, who deserves free speech, and we answer anything less than everybody, I'm not quite sure we understand the core of our government, core of our Constitution, the core of who we are as Americans. So I think it's very important that we add faculty back into this and make a very strong statement to citizens of Kansas that we value their free speech, and if not, then live with the consequences of what that tells them. So I move my amendment.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. I now see the required number of hands for roll call.
Alley. Baumgartner. Berger. Billinger. Boyer. Bowers. Denning. Dahl. Estes. Paus-Godot. Fitzgerald.
The chair recognizes the senator from Leavenworth, Senator Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I vote no for one very good reason, and that is the faculty are under contract, and what they say is part of that contract. In fact, it is probably the main part of that contract, as has been expressed. For us to preempt that, I think, would be a terrible imposition of our judgment upon those who have been charged with running this operation. With that, I would vote no. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Francisco, Givens, Goddard, Haley, Hardy, Hawk, Hensley, Hildebrand, Holland, Kelly, Kirshen, Longbine, Lim, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, Peterson, Petty, Pilcher Cook, Pyle, Rogers, Schmidt, Skubal, Solentrop, Sykes, Taylor, Tyson, Weigel, Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to change their vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. The amendment fails. We are now back on the base bill of Senate Bill 340. Excuse me, the count is 12 yeas, 26 nays. We're back on the base bill. The chair calls on Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll stand for final questions.
Yes, the senator from Johnson, Senator Bollier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will the senator stand for a question?
He will.
Thank you. My question has to do with, in bringing this bill forward, were the colleges asked question about the cost to them with the limitations placed by this bill to not charge for the type of speaking being presented at the university?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say their representatives were asked. They were not at the hearing, but those conversations were had. And I might reiterate, it's not that a fee can't be charged, it's that an undue fee can't be charged. So as long as there's parity, you're not discriminating between one group or another for whatever reason, it doesn't prohibit it.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Bollier.
So can I clarify, would in understanding from a group, different types of speaking engagements bring different numbers of people? And so would this bill then limit in any way a university's assessment on what is needed for protection of our students relative to who's speaking?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a good question. The answer is no. They're not that does not restrict them or limit them in any way. And so a good example, if the group that I expect is 500 and this room here is available for $1,000 for the evening for my group, and it comes with a $100 security fee or whatever, as long as that's the same for everybody wanting to use this room or use a larger venue or a smaller venue, as long as those are the same to whoever is participating, it's perfectly appropriate for that institution and wise to assess the situation.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Boullier.
Thank you. So I would disagree that it does limit their choice by saying everyone needs to be the same for the size versus the activity. We all know that different types of engagement with different groups brings different kinds of people that have more insight, anger, or other feelings. My concern is that we now have guns on campuses, and there is a duty, in my opinion, that the university has to protect our students. And this bill limits their ability, if everybody has to be charged the same, that they may then need to raise the fee so high, anticipating that it has to be the same for everybody, no matter what, that then it will curtail free speech rather than encourage. And I struggle with that, and why it would be a reason why I wouldn't support this particular bill. I think it would be impeding, based on my understanding of what Senator from Butler just explained. So thank you.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and maybe I didn't explain it correctly, because it does not impede in any way for their assessment of the situation, whatever the situation is, and providing whatever they would like to provide for the situation. It doesn't impede the university, and I guess I'm not even sure. I know there's fear. I mean, and I can't say that fear isn't real to an individual person, but even though there are groups out there that have retrograde ideas, and we are then left with a moral responsibility to stand up against those ideas and defeat them with better ideas. The fact is, even if it's a situation that would arise, that there is controversy, it is still necessary in that marketplace. And this does nothing to stop the institution from assessing that situation.
Are there any further questions on the bill? Yes, Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the Senator from Butler. Does this apply to all educational institutions?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify some misunderstanding caucus this morning. It applies to public institutions, taxpayer-funded colleges and universities, as I mentioned in my opening remarks.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, the Senator from Riley, Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the Senator from Butler. Did your committee discuss the Charlottesville incident, a large gathering like that? And if so, how would this bill impact a university or its president from being able to deal with a very large crowd like that and some of the spinoff that might occur?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, it seems the constitutional time, place, and manner would apply. You have you can't be threatening, can't be disruptive. You can't. There are a whole host of things the university has access to that would have been broken in that instance, and they have the ability to respond.
Senator from Riley, Senator Hawk.
So I'm interpreting from what you say, if the university, this would not prohibit a university from making a judgment that certain groups might have some of those spin-off activities that could either lead to violence or enough disruption of the university or actually destruction of property, so they could make that judgment and protect their students?
Senator from Riley, excuse me, Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. They could certainly make the judgment and assess the situation. They could not stop a free speech event. You can stop anything violent, anything destructive of property, any insulary event that was breaking a law or a rule or policy, but you couldn't prohibit the content of somebody's speech.
Senator from Riley, Senator Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand what you're saying, and for those kinds of things that would be done in potentially a nonviolent way, I would totally agree, even if I disagreed with the comments of people on either side. But if there's a history of a group that may purport a certain thing, and it's reasonable for a university president or that administration to see that this has happened in another place for the same kind of request, I'm hearing you say, no, they couldn't. It would actually have to occur before they could take action on that. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the answer to that is no, as far as you couldn't do anything to prohibit. I mean, you can, anything within your constitutional time, place, and manner, you can do, and you could limit situations before something goes wrong. You can provide security in addition if you feel like there's going to be something coming forward, but you just can't prohibit the content of the speech.
Senator from Riley, Senator Hawk.
Thank you. But I also heard you say you can't charge differently for that. So if you have a history of something happening, and I'll use the Charlottesville as an example, and you know that you need to bring in the National Guard along with a lot of other security, you're saying you couldn't charge a group for what would be anticipated as what might likely result in a violent activity.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You could not charge an undue security fee. That would prohibit that. That'd make that prohibitive.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the senator from Butler. That gives me pause as I try to, in my own mind, balance what is very important to me, which is free speech, with my former obligation as a school administrator to protect the students that I was responsible for. Thank you.
The chair calls on the senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would the senator from Butler answer a question?
He will.
We have let's say we have a situation with a faculty member from a university that was hired by a group to speak at that same university. Would his freedom of speech be nullified like the rest of the faculty is under this bill?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The freedom of speech as faculty is not nullified under this bill. You have an overarching constitutional right to free speech. We were talking about some contract issues, number one. Two, if they're hired to come in and speak, certainly they have free speech.
Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
Okay, I don't think that bill's clear on that in that particular instance, and then I humbly and respectfully disagree with the senator from Butler. I think we are taking away some free speech from faculty. Thank you.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's interesting to me. So we have a national constitutional fundamental right to free speech. This is strengthening that on our campuses where the marketplace needs to be the broadest. This is not a restriction on anybody's free. It's an amplification of your right to free speech and that idea of the marketplace. I mean, if it's rising to that level of fear, I mean, you have a right in this chamber to vote no. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions for the senator from Butler? Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can the senator from Butler tell me how much that amplification of this constitutional right costs the state of Kansas?
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal note attached to this bill was 0. But if the implication is there's going to be some wild event that takes security, I mean, it would be whatever you thought that security might cost. But the official number of cost is 0.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
There may not be a physical note on the bill, but I believe there is a price to have legislative research advisors printing in the books. That's the price I was questioning.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
I believe the last I knew, and this was a few years ago, the average cost to process and print a bill was in, I think I'd seen like $3,000 to $4,000 range.
Are there further questions? Yes, the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Sullentrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not so much as a question, but perhaps a statement. We're speaking of material costs. Material costs to provide a facility, material costs to arrange an event, and so be it if we need to call out the National Guard. What was the cost of the freedom of speech years and years ago our forefathers gave? This is one of the tenets of our very foundation of this country. I don't know that you can associate material cost to freedom of speech. We have to do this. This is necessary. We're concerned about some costs, but those are minimal when you look at the magnitude of the issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson? No? Then I will call on the senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, the senator from Sedgwick beat me to the statement, but I will reiterate his words. We are talking about cost, but look at the cost of freedom. Look what our forefathers did. We must never forget that we are the heirs of our forefathers' revolution. And each year, our veterans and our citizens put themselves on the line for the opportunity of free speech. We must support free speech. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson, did you have a response? No? Then I call on the senator from Stafford, Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to comment. Because we already have free speech, I feel as uncomfortable voting for this. We already have that guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the United States, and it's been pointed out that this would help strengthen this with contract issues, but I have a concern that if we have a bill for contract issues for every public institution that in our purview, that perhaps that's a road we don't want to go down. So that's my comment.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and actually thank you, Senator from Sedgwick, Senator from Lynn. I think that was articulated very well. There may be a cost of freedom, but it is well worth it. And we are talking, there are instances in this country, there are policies in this state that are restrictive of a student's ability to express an idea. Everything from written policies to interpersonal intimidation that happen on our campuses. And the fundamental right on a campus is where it needs to be. I'm having trouble articulating it, where it needs to be the broadest. And we're talking about where students, where the minds are formed. Because when you move through your high school years, your college years, that takes you into the rest of life. And that is where that marketplace of ideas needs to be most important. And what's ringing in my head is a quote from Henrik Heine back in the 1800s, but where you burn books today, you'll burn people tomorrow. And that, I mean, it was a predicate to the Holocaust. And I know that's an extreme example, but that's how important it was. That's how important it is. We must have the marketplace of ideas, particularly on our campuses. So I'll stand for more questions, Madam Chair.
Yes, the senator from Reno, Senator Berger.
College campuses have always been a place of social activism. New ideas, new thoughts. Back in the 60s, it was an entirely different issue. Certainly today, it might be still a different issue. But social activism is a part of growing up, part of a college setting and environment. And certainly if this facilitates that, that's a positive. Again, there were many issues back in the 60s. And again, I wonder how many of those people in this room experienced that. Probably only me. But, but certainly that is the case, and that was free speech, and that was people protesting. And those were activists that led change. And that is a part of what college life's about.
Senator Butler, Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson. Are there any further questions on this bill? Yes, Senator from Labette, Senator Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier of the bill, I have a question. It says this is an act concerning post-secondary educational institutions establishing the Campus Free Speech Protection Act. I don't think anyone here disagrees about the right to free speech. I think that this bill is more appropriately entitled the bill that would guarantee equal opportunity for free speech. Thank you.
Are there any further questions on the bill? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be brief since we've had a discussion, and I actually appreciated the reference to the 60s because something I had learned more recently, which makes this even more relevant, is that back in the 60s, there were no instances actually of the riots or protests from the right, how we divide ourselves, right and left. They're all from the left. More recently, some of these protests have started to come from the right, trying to shut up the left. So it would be a devastating, dangerous position to be in an arms race to shut each other up. And this is what's unique today and what's becoming more polarizing and more extreme. So with that, Madam Chair, I move when the committee rise and report SB 340 favorably as amended.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those who oppose, no. No. The motion carries. The chair at this time recognizes the majority leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried.
The clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Denning, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders, with Senator Baumgartner in the chair. Recommended, Senate Bill 428 be amended on motion of Senator Schmidt and the bill be passed as amended. House Bill 2498 be passed. Senate Bill 340 be amended by the adoption of the committee amendments, be further amended on motion of Senator Rogers, and the bill be passed as further amended.
The chair recognizes the senator from Miami, Senator Baumgartner, to adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Correction and approval of the journal. Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Madam President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2579 as amended, and the bill be passed as amended. Senator Wilborn, chairperson. Madam President, the Committee on Ethics, Elections, and Local Government recommends Senate Bill 313 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Senator Bowers, chairperson. Madam President, the Committee on Assessment and Taxation recommends Senate Bill 437 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Senator Tyson, chairperson. Madam President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends House Bill 2558 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Senator Kirshen, chairperson. Madam President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2457 as amended by House Committee be passed. Senator Wilborn, Chairperson. Madam President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2571 as amended and the bill be passed as amended. Senator Wilborn, Chairperson.
At this time, I am withdrawing House Bill 2700 from the Committee on Ethics, Elections, and Local Government and re-referring to the Committee on Federal and State Affairs. I am withdrawing House Bill 2531 from the calendar and re-referring to the Committee on Transportation. And I am withdrawing Senate Bill 352 from the Committee on Education and re-referring to the Select Committee on Education Finance. Messages from the House, the clerk will read.
The House non-concurs in Senate amendments to House Bill 2232, requests a conference, and has appointed Representatives Davis, Gallagher, and Ousley as conferees on part of the House.
On a motion to accede, the chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate accede to the request of the House for a conference on House Bill 2232.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. As conferees on the part of the Senate, the chair appoints the senator from Shawnee, Senator Schmidt, the senator from Johnson, Senator Boyer, senator from Shawnee, Senator Kelly. Are there announcements? Chair recognizes Senator from Reno, Senator Berger.
The Subcommittee on Ways and Means and Higher Ed will meet immediately after adjournment in 548 South.
Chair recognizes Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd like to draw the body's attention to invitation to the Sportsman's Caucus Annual Fishing Tournament Sporting Clays Shoot and Receptions. Attached to the back of it is a RSVP note that you can email to the contact that's listed on the back. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Senator from Johnson, Senator Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just a reminder to the committee that Friday I had us scheduled at 8:30. We will not be meeting at 8:30 on Friday, and we will be working House Bill 2701 tomorrow at 8:30.
Are there additional announcements? Seeing none, the chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Senate will be back on general orders tomorrow. We'll be debating 3 bills. The following bills are House Bill 2454, House Bill 2042, and House Bill 2145. Those are the 3 bills. We'll also be clearing the appointment for KDHE Secretary Jeff Anderson. If anybody needs to look at his folder, please see Travis and he'll give you access to that. Mr. Vice President, the other announcement is Senate Republicans will caucus at 8 a.m. in 548 South.
Chair recognizes Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Senate Democrats will caucus at 1 p.m. tomorrow in room 287 North.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, March 15th, 2018.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The Senate is adjourned.